So now let's talk about the difference between silent treatment, no contact, and ghosting. So all three are things that you experience when you're dealing with narcissists, but two of them are done by the narcissist and one of them is done by you, the victim or the target of the narcissist's abuse or behavior. So let's talk first about silent treatment. So silent treatment is something that the narcissist uses in order to gain control over you. It's something that they do to make you upset, to make you squirm. Remember that the narcissist is doing whatever they can to get control over you, because that gives them a form of narcissistic supply. If you want to know more about narcissistic supply, you should definitely check out my video on narcissistic supply. Basically what it is anything that feeds a narcissist's ego. And I kind of liken it to almost like the tip of the iceberg kind of a thing, because the stuff that feeds a narcissist's ego that you can see on top of the iceberg is the stuff that would feed anybody's ego, because who doesn't like getting compliments or respect or having prestigious, you know, life or friends or a nice house or whatever it is. So those are sort of like the things that first come to mind when people think, oh, feed their ego. That's what they want. They want to, you know, compliments, and they want their ego to be fluffed up in some way. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg, because remember that in some ways, you could say that we all have narcissistic traits or tendencies, but I don't really call it that. I know some people do. I don't really call it that, because a narcissist to me is all the way at the end of the spectrum. It's a person who is pathologically in need of anything that feeds their ego. All human beings want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. That's why my book is called Negotiate Like You Matter. When I wrote the book, I didn't specifically address narcissists throughout the entire book. I do reference narcissists some, but when you're dealing with a narcissist, what you're really dealing with is somebody who has no sense of self. They need to get as much out of the people around them as they can, almost like squeezing lemons or sucking blood. You know, that's why sometimes they're called energy vampires. Or I remember when I was dealing with narcissists, I remember feeling like they were leeches. And that was just the only word I could come up with, was like leeches or parasites. And they almost want to become you. And so that's why sometimes you find them like staring at you or watching you. And if you want to know more about that creepy narcissist stare, check out my video on why the narcissist is always watching you, because that's part of what it is that they're doing. They kind of almost want to become you in some ways. So because they have no sense of self. So the rest of that iceberg is the other stuff, what I call the dark underbelly, the part that they don't show the world. And that is that they get narcissistic supply from treating people poorly, from being scary, from intimidating you, gaslighting you, projection, denying, deflection, control tactics, smear campaigns, flying monkeys. It's this whole nasty, toxic stew that you're subjected to, and it becomes really, really traumatic and difficult to get out of once they start that toxic stew formula on you. So that's what's happening when to feed their ego, to feed their need for narcissistic supply. So when they give you the silent treatment, it's actually just a form of trying to control you. So they are stopping talking to you, you know, via text or email or whatever, like they're at work, or maybe you live in separate places, and all of a sudden you can't get in touch with them. And so that they have this, they're giving you the silent treatment, and it's to try to get you to come back and grovel and say, oh, please talk to me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I was, you know, I shouldn't have said that. You know, they want you to beg to get back into their web of control. And they love that. They love to see you squirm that way. That totally gets them that narcissistic supply that they so deeply need to, that they so deeply crave. And closely related to the silent treatment is ghosting. But ghosting is actually when they're ready to be done and they're just gone. And now all of a sudden you just never hear from them again. And that will happen when they don't feel like there's any source of supply left that they can squeeze out of you. So they just move on to other sources of supply. As long as they think that there's some form of supply for them to squeeze out of you, even if they've long moved on to other sources of supply, they'll come back. And the supply doesn't necessarily mean that they think that you're going to tell them how wonderful they are. It means as long as they think that they can scare you, control you, intimidate you, jerk you around, treat you poorly, make you feel intimidated, all of those things, they will continue to come back into your space. Or maybe just being attached to you in some way gives them some sort of prestige, or just, you know, because maybe you're more powerful than they are, just getting your attention sometimes is all they want. So, but that's when they're coming back and they're hoovering and all that sort of thing. So ghosting just means they're gone and you never hear from them again. And that just means that you're no longer a good source of supply for them. And if you are ready to get out of this narcissistic relationship today, give me a today in the comments. Okay, so now let's talk about going no contact. This is something that you do as the narcissist victim, or the target of the narcissistic abuse. And this is something that you do to protect yourself, to put up boundaries, to stop that narcissistic abuse, to say it's not okay anymore, I'm ready to move on, and I'm ready to take control back of my life. So one is done, you know, ghosting or silent treatment, they're used by the narcissist as a weapon. Whereas you are actually using going no contact as a shield, as a barrier, as a protection for yourself, where you're actually just saying, it's not okay anymore. I'm blocking you on my phone. I'm blocking you on my social media. And I don't want to see what you're doing. I don't want you to see what I'm doing. I don't want to interact with you anymore. I want to erase you from the CPU of my life. I don't want to have to deal with you ever again. And that's what I had to do with narcissists in my life. And, you know, I still have to deal with them popping up every once in a while, unfortunately. But I keep up super strong boundaries, and I try to keep it to a very, very bare minimum. Which is why I don't even mention who they are in these videos, because I don't want them coming back. I want them to stay away, and I would like to wipe them from the CPU of my life as if they never existed. They never came into my life. They never came into my world. And I highly recommend that you do the same. It is so much better. The air smells cleaner, the sky is bluer, the grass is greener. It's definitely better to get that negative energy out of your space. So that's what it means to go no contact. Now, let's talk about the 6 things that narcissists do when you try to go no contact, which I highly recommend that you do. And I've had to do it myself with a couple of narcissists. It's never fun. It's never great. They try to make it almost impossible. They try to make it so that you really don't want to have to do that. But you definitely do have to do that, because
they will eventually take over your soul. Like literally, I describe it as like pods. I know there was some movie, like, you know, I don't know if it was in the 60s or something, like a long time ago, where like these pods like came and sat down next to people and like took all of their like information and like basically took over their bodies. And that's how I feel about narcissists. Like they're these pods that just come into your life and steal you, and you end up feeling like you're like being choked to death, or like, I don't know, my situation, where I talked a lot about this, by the way, in a couple of recent videos. One was my toxic relationships, and the other one was, I don't normally share this, my own story of bullying. But like in my situation, I felt like one of the narcissists was literally trying to like become me, like stand in my shoes and be me, and but also like was devaluing me and doing things to me at the same time. It was super weird and really awful. And so that's kind of how you start to feel, right? And so you have to go no contact in order to like, it's like not too dramatic, I don't think, to say like save your soul. Like that's how I felt. So, but you do want to know what's going to happen when you go to do that, right? So let's talk about that now. So the first thing is that they're going to maybe try to start going back to what worked for them before. Because remember, there's those three different ways that they're, you know, that they interact in relationships. There's the three different phases, which is love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. And by the way, I have videos on each one of those if you want to go check them out. But they start off with love bombing, or that idealization phase, where they show up, whether it's, you know, it's not always a romantic, it can be a business situation, which it was for me. And they show up in your space and they seem like they're absolutely perfect. And then they start to devalue you. And then, you know, there's the discard phase, but they kind of go back and forth between the phases. So they're going to go back to what worked before. You know, oh, you know, we can always work this out. We've always been so good together. We've always been able to do things. You know, why do you need to be so rigid? Why do you need to be so difficult? You know, try to like get you to be charmed by them again. You know, whatever that worked before to charm them, they'll go back to that. And sometimes it's called hoovering, where they're basically coming back and saying, oh, you know, maybe I haven't talked to you in a while, and suddenly you get that ping in your inbox or in your DMs or whatever, and you're like, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. What are they doing here? So, you know, they're going to go back to trying to charm you in some way. So that's number one. The next thing is that they may try to escalate their tactics, like come on even stronger, you know, like you barely feel like you can breathe sometimes with them. Like now all of a sudden they're showing up at your house, they're showing up at your office, they happen to be talking to everybody that you know, like you just can't get away from this person. There they are. They may call you incessantly, they may text you incessantly. They may escalate their efforts on all the bad things that they're doing, manipulating situations, projection, denial, deflection, lying, all the things that they normally do, but now on steroids. Because remember, with a narcissist, you're either for them or against them. They're very black and white, you know? So they may escalate their tactics. You see like them coming on much more strongly. And then the third thing that they will likely do when you go no contact is start that triangulation, which is kind of, you know, in the discard phase, that's when you start to see the birth of the smear campaign. So they'll escalate even the triangulation, meaning that they're lining up their flying monkeys. They're talking to people that you know. They want you to feel excluded. They want you to feel isolated. They want you to be punished for going no contact with them. So they want you to think that they're doing great, and you are making a huge mistake by going no contact with them. That they're going to have everybody in your world against you, and everyone's going to line up for them, and everyone's going to think you're the crazy one, or you're the bad one, or maybe you're the narcissist, and they'll try to divide you in that way. So isolate you, manipulate situations, triangulates, that smear campaign. So that's like kind of all goes into number 3, as far as like triangulation, smear campaign, and lining up flying monkeys against you. So that's the third thing. And if any of you have seen this before, I want you to tell me I've seen it in the comments below, because I'm sure you've totally seen this before. Okay, so now let's talk about the fourth thing. So the fourth thing is that their narcissistic injury could be triggered, and so therefore that narcissistic rage comes flying out. So now they're not just trying to hoover you, they're not just pushing you more, they're not just triangulating, they're not just escalating. Now it's like they're in full-on rage. Like, you will do what I want, you will come back, you will be punished. And sometimes I think they go into this rage state just so that you're afraid, just so that you are punished. Not just that they're angry. I mean, I know that they're angry too. They're like 2-year-olds in adult bodies. So they're literally having a tantrum now. They're literally like super angry. And sometimes during this phase, that's when they start to actually become undone. They start to make mistakes. And that's when you're starting to close in on them. And in a negotiation setting, that's when that your tactics are actually starting to work. And that's when you are actually the most vulnerable to going, oh my God, I don't think I have the stomach for this. But that's when you got to keep going, because narcissists are always the worst right before they're ready to give up. And I do have a whole video on the undoing of a narcissist, which I broke down the show, that Hugh Grant show. That's a really great example of a malignant narcissist who was like continuing to do things. But the more people figured out who he was, the more mistakes he started to make, and that became his undoing. So that leads me to number 5, which is the narcissistic collapse, which sometimes they do. They completely collapse. They just become undone. They don't know what to think about their world, because, they do have a very fragile sense of self. For them, the world is a place of survival, that they have to survive. And so sometimes they do collapse, and that's number 5. And the last thing is that eventually, if you do it the right way and you create the right strategy and you have the right leverage and you figure out how to cut off any source of supply from you, that means you're not intimidated, you're not scared, your fear goes away, all of that, because now they just realize they're not getting any supply from you anymore at all. And they're like vultures, so there's nothing left in this carcass over here. So they will eventually, and this is number 6, go find narcissistic supply somewhere else, because they have to have it. It is what they feed on, it's their lifeblood, it's their oxygen. But you just want to make sure that you are no longer a source of that narcissistic supply for them. So eventually your no contact will absolutely work. So how does a narcissist handle rejection or no contact? Well, as I said, not well. And it may be, that may actually be an understatement, because the thing with narcissists is that they have no inner sense of value. They need to get all of their value from the external, and how they do that is in the form of what we call narcissistic supply. So they're going to try to suck supply from everywhere that they possibly can. And the only reason why they attach themselves to people is because they're looking to feed that beast, that never-ending black hole that's inside of them, that must be fed with narcissistic supply. So narcissistic supply is that external sense of value that they try to cover up their inner sense of fragility and having no value, and that tiny little ego that's inside of them. They try to lather a big cover up on top of it, and they do that in the form of narcissistic supply. So supply can be anything in the form of compliments, money, big house, big car, the right spouse, the right friends, living in the right place, a huge bank account, big salary, all of those kinds of things feed a narcissist's ego and gives them that external sense of value that they so desperately need. The other form of narcissistic supply can also be um, devaluing somebody, debasing them, degrading them, cutting them down, judging them, making them squirm. All of those things, delight the narcissist in a way because it gives them a sense of control. It makes them feel like they're better than you. And so that also feeds that beast, that necessary beast of feeling that they need for endless supply. So when a narcissist chooses a target, which, by the way, if you think that you might be a target of a narcissist, you should definitely check out my video on Are You a Narcissist Magnet? And I'll drop a link to that below. But if you are a narcissist magnet and you have been a target or a victim of a narcissist, then you should know that the reason why they selected you, they chose you, is because they felt that they could get supply from you. So a lot of times they choose empaths. They choose people who are kind, who are considerate, who are very loving, who are going to be willing to help them in some way. And they're seeing, okay, I can get value from this person. Because remember, your value to a narcissist is just the value that you can bring to them. It doesn't have anything to do with giving you anything. It's like, okay, how can I suck value out of this person? It might be that you look the right way, or that you come from the right people, or that you know the right people, or that you have the right status, or whatever it is. This, because they can't connect on a real level. They can't truly feel empathy or care for another person. So they just want to know, what can you do for me? So your value to a narcissist is just the value that you bring to them. And as long as you're bringing value to them, then you get to stay in their space. If you're no longer bringing value to them, then they really don't have any use for you. But they can be discarding you and still have use for you because they can make you squirm. So if you turn around and you reject that narcissist and you go no contact, you are basically cutting off their supply. And so it's not going to go well for them, or you, actually, mostly for you. Because they have this narcissistic injury, and that injury is that scab, that little inner person, that frightened child, because something happened to a narcissist at some point in their life, probably their childhood, which caused them to have trauma and broke something inside of their head. And there's that little bit of narcissistic, that narcissistic injury is inside that little person. And so what happens is, when somebody leaves a narcissist and triggers that narcissistic injury is inflamed in some way, then it can trigger narcissistic rage. And narcissistic rage looks like, I'm pretty sure you know what it looks like, but it can look like basically an adult having a 2-year-old tantrum, screaming, yelling, intimidation tactics, lying about you, smear campaigns, going after you. And if they're a covert narcissist, they're going to be lining up their flying monkeys, trying to get everybody against you. All narcissists, deal in gaslighting. If you want to know more about that, you should check out my video on gaslighting techniques. But the other thing that they're going to do is potentially violence, stalking, threats of violence, especially if they are a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissist is the scariest form of narcissist, and I have a video on that you're going to want to check out too. They're the ones that actually have an overlay of an antisocial personality and paranoia, and so they tend to be even take rejection or no contact so much worse. So one thing that you should know is that rejection is the thing that narcissists fear the most. That's the one thing they do not want to happen to them. And so if you reject them, then that's like in some ways the worst thing that could possibly happen for them, because you're taking away, you're snatching away that 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 oxygen that they need, that narcissistic supply. You're taking it from them, and they really think that that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. So they're probably going to go after you, or they might just try to punish you in other ways. But punishment is definitely something that they are going to want to be plotting. They're going to want to get you back. They're going to want to make sure you pay for, you know, making them look bad in any way, shape, or form, or rejecting them. How could you possibly do that? And if this sounds like you and you're dealing with a narcissist in your life and you are so ready to get them out of your life, give me an "I'm ready" in the comments. If you're lucky, the narcissist might just never speak to you again, and maybe they think that's your punishment. If that happens to you, thank your lucky stars, because most narcissists don't take rejection and no contact in that way. As many of you know who've watched a lot of my videos, I've had to deal with a couple of narcissists in my own life, not as husbands, thank God, but as people who were close enough to me to wreak havoc and cause damage. And I know for me, you know, what they ended up doing is, you know, I try to go no contact myself, which is something I highly recommend that you do, is go no contact as fast as you possibly can. But then you're going to experience all of these things. And remember when I tell you this, that narcissists are the worst right before they're getting ready to give up. But sometimes their ego, they think they look more confident by going after you. And so I know in my own life, I've had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists. And so they felt entitled to do certain things to me, or go through other people to try to get to me, or get me, you know, riled up, or get me upset about things. You know, one of them was an extended member of my family, and so, you know, tried to use family members to go after me in certain ways. And you know, it's just, it's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's awful to deal with. But it's definitely worse to continue to have that narcissist in your life. And please remember that narcissists are very clever. They know how to bring you in. They know how to love bomb you. That's what they did in the first place, to love bomb you. And so they're going to try to do whatever they can to love bomb you back in. Oh, you know, come on back. Things are going to be different. It's going to be better. Because even if they were on the verge of rejecting you, they can't be rejected. They don't want to be the ones being rejected. So they may try to figure out a way to claw their way back into your life. Don't fall for it. Don't buy it. Just keep on walking, move forward. You know, Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. So once you've already seen how they can be, don't expect them to change. They can't. They can't be rehabilitated. They can pretend to behave. They know what good behavior looks like. It doesn't mean that you're going to get them to actually care and have empathy. So there's a lot of people in this world, 7.5 billion people. Find other people to hang out with, find other people to be around. So when it's time to reject that narcissist and go no contact, expect these types of behaviors, but just hold firm, because you can do this. Just hang on, don't give in, don't give up, just keep on walking.
Fed up with narcissists walking all over you? Sick of everyone believing their lies while you're paying through the nose in attorney's fees? What if you could hold all the cards for a change? Hey, I'm Rebecca Zung. I'm a top 1% trial attorney, a USA Today bestselling author, and I've spent my entire career helping people slay narcissists in negotiations, most recently through my proven slay method. What if your suffering could become your superpower? Imagine turning all that pain into power, not just for you, but for others too. This is your chance to take back control. You can finally win, become a high high conflict negotiation certified coach. Help others while transforming your own life and do good for the world. This is your chance. Go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I'll show you how to turn the tables for good starting today.
You are ready to reject a narcissist, go no contact with the narcissist. What do you need to know? All right, so no contact lets you know that you are onto them. You know, they now know that their secret is out, right? Because, you know, they think that you have been snowed by them. They think that you have been love bombed by them. They think that you have been conditioned by them. And remember that they have no inner sense of value. And they have this deep, deep, deep shame. And so they're constantly trying to cover that up. They kind of lead these double lives. I do have a whole video on that, why narcissists lead double lives, which you can definitely check out. But they have these deep sense of, you know, no inner value whatsoever, and deep sense of self-hatred, and they don't want you to know that. And so when you go to leave them, you know, that's like their worst case scenario. They don't want to be abandoned. That's like the last thing that they want, even though they've treated you horribly the whole time, by the way, which is the whole irony of the whole thing. In a way, like, you think, didn't you want me to leave you? Like, you hate me. But yet when you do try to leave, they try to make you feel guilty. What are you leaving for? I mean, it's such a cycle of toxicity. Is awful. I mean, the whole time you've been there, they've been horrible to you. But when you go to leave, then now they really know that, you know, the jig is up. And they do start to feel a sense of regret, but they're not going to let you know that, because for them, like, this world is very black and white. And once you leave, you become public enemy number one. And, you know, that shame is like so much worse. That self-hatred, that self-loathing that they feel is just so much worse for them. And it really kind of destroys them in a lot of ways. But they do go into this self-defense mode. And it becomes like this war. They have this narcissistic injury that's deep inside of them that was created when they were very young, and it gets exposed. And when you leave them, is like a scab is ripped off. And now that narcissistic rage comes flying out, and they've got to make sure that they get you before you get them. And so they want to make sure to the world, you look like the loser, because they can't look like the loser. You have to look like the loser, because how they look to the world is everything. So you have to look like you're the loser. They want to make sure they take you down before you can take them down. So if it's a divorce situation, and they're going to go into this annihilation mode, and they'll file all kinds of stuff, maybe in the family law court. I mean, depending on the type of narcissist they are, it could be crazy motions. It could be all kinds of false things, false allegations. They could threaten you. They could line up flying monkeys. They could get all these people to try to believe lies against you. I mean, depending on the type of narcissist that they are, how malignant they are, how psychopathic they are, how much they really hate you, how vindictive they are. But the thing is, you got to remember that you have to slay it. Slay meaning my form of slay and your form of slay. But slay for my form is strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. Strategy, leverage, anticipate. what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them and focus on you, your mental health, your case. The best defense is a good offense. And 90% of winning is your mental, is knowing that you can win before you even get there. So you can do it. You absolutely can, but you just got to make sure that you are prepared ahead of time. You absolutely can win, but you've got to be prepared. And remember, the best leverage is going to be figuring out what form of supply is going to be more important for them to protect than the supply that they get from jerking you around. So what supply is going to be more important for them to protect, which is always going to be how they look, than the supply that they get from, jerking you around or making you miserable, manipulating you. I mean, because that's always, some sort of supply that they get as well. So just make sure that they see that you aren't being baited, that you aren't being manipulated, that you aren't moved by their craziness, because they get supply from that. And then just keep walking, right? Don't look back. Don't even twitch. Don't even switch. Don't even move, because that gives them supply. And remember that you can slay this. And I want you to write in the comments right now, I can slay this, because you can. You absolutely can. And that's what the narcissist reaction is to rejection or no contact. Remember, the narcissist is more afraid of you than you are of them. They absolutely are. And they are worse before they get better. So just anticipate that. But that's the reaction to rejection or no contact. I mean, it's not going to be good. You know that it's not going to be good. So just expect that. So what? They're going to act like a 2-year-old, like a toddler on the floor. So what? You know what? You're bigger, you're better, you can do it.
What narcissists do when you're not looking. What are they doing? The first thing they'll be doing, they're going to be stalking you. I mean, maybe not openly. Some of them might be doing it openly. Hopefully not. If they are, definitely call the police or whatever you need to do to protect yourself. But they're going to be looking at your social media. They're going to be trying to figure out what it is that you're up to. They might send out their little minions to go check out and see what you're doing. That's why you want to try to block them on social media if you can. Block them, change all your passwords. Make sure that you change passwords on your social media, on all your logins, maybe even monthly for a while if you need to. Go no contact as soon as you can, for sure. They're going to be checking out to see what it is that you're doing, if they can. They're not going to take it lying down, even if they are walking away from you. That's the crazy thing, because they still want to get their form of supply from you if they can. They're going to want to keep their new form of supply, but they also want to keep the old form of supply from you if they can. They like it all. What else are they going to be doing while they're gone and you've left? Okay. And you've said, okay, this is fine. They're going to be telling everybody that they left you, that it was fine, that this is what they wanted anyway, that it's a good thing, because they want to preserve some level of whatever. So now they want to make sure that you get smeared before you can smear them. They want to expose you before you can expose them. They want to take you down before you can take them down. So this is where the birth of that smear campaign comes in. They got to rewrite history. They've got to get everybody on board. So brace yourself for this one. Even if they say, oh, I want this to be nice. I want this to be as good as possible. Let's part as friends. You can't believe this. I mean, if they were lying when they were with you, whether it was as business partners or as a boss or a colleague or whoever it was, they're not going to be suddenly wonderful at the end. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't believe that they're going to be. They will tarnish your reputation. They will spread lies about you, and they will recruit those quote unquote flying monkeys, the people that they want to be like on their side in their army, because they're all insecure. They don't want
to feel like they're by themselves. They want you to feel abandoned and alone. They want you to feel isolated. They want you to feel ganged up on. They want you to feel bullied. They want you to feel like you're wrong, they're right, and they're higher and you're lower. It's crucial for them to stay strong and you're the weak one. And so they want to be the one doing all the manipulating. And so they want to be the one using their tactics on you. And so they will line up their smear campaign. And is it going to be open and like this? Maybe, but maybe not. It might be in terms of care. That's how a covert narcissist tends to be. A covert narcissist tends to be more in terms of care. So it might look more like, oh, I'm so concerned about Susie. I'm so worried about her. And, she's been so depressed. She's just been, I don't know how she's going to make it. I don't know if Susie's going to be able to take care of the kids. I want to help her. I just want to help her and just be supportive. So it comes through like that, even though, the person's really smearing Susie in terms of care. You got to be careful about those ones, those covert ones, even though they're smearing the person. So sometimes it's more like that. Sometimes the smearing is in terms of guilt. Oh, I can't believe that they left me here all alone with no money. And you're left with plenty in the bank account and you never really left in the first place, but they make it seem like you left with nothing. There's that kind of smearing too. There's the guilt kind of smearing, the playing the victim card, making it seem like telling everybody who will listen, like you abandoned them, you abandoned the kids, they're the suffering one, you're the heartless one, you ran off, designed to guilt trip the whole world, that sort of thing. There's that as well. Anybody who'll listen, you're heartless, you're abandoned, you're cruel, they're the victim. So there's the smearing, rewriting history. Then what else is going to happen while you're gone? They're going to be brooding. They're going to be depressed. They're going to be by themselves, thinking how horrible it's been, rewriting history. They were so good. They gave you everything. How could you be doing this? They might be sending you messages. I can't believe you're abandoning me or this company or this family or this thing. So they might be trying to send you something. They might be trying to send you something that might be, oh, that wasn't meant for you. Getting my cancer results back this week. Oh, was that for you? Oh, I didn't mean to send that to you. Oh, you wouldn't want to be worried about that. Don't you worry yourself about that. Just to try to hook you in, try to get you interested, trying to suck you back into the whole zone of drama. Stalk you, tell everybody how awful it's been, tell everybody you left, plot and plan, feel sorry for themselves, rewrite history, smear you, look for ways to plot at you, tell their story to you, tell everybody who will listen, look for ways to plot at you, look for ways to smear you, tell everybody who will listen. But fear not, my warriors, I've got a little something for you. If you want strategies to stay strong during no contact, I got something for you. While they're gone and then they suddenly appear, that's called hoovering. So what you're going to do when you see that little Hoover DM pop up in your phone or in your Instagram or in your Facebook or in your email or whatever, you're going to see it and you're going to go, oh, I know what you are. Oh, no, I'm not falling for that. So you're just going to say boundaries. And so I want you to put that in the comments below. Boundaries right now. Boundaries. Be aware of such little plots and twists and plans. You're not going to fall for it. Another thing is, that little guilt trip thing through families and friends where they try to use your family and friends to guilt trip you. They'll have your cousin come. oh, she's not doing so well. Can't you come and talk to her? Can't you just try? Or, a business partner or somebody that try to communicate through somebody close to you so they can try to understand what's going on. No, don't allow it. Keep to your boundaries. I mean, another thing that they will try to do is they'll see that you're not responding. They attempt to get at you by completely ghosting you, completely getting you to get back at you through not responding at all. Stay strong. Focus on your healing journey. That's what you need to focus yourself on. There you have it. That's what narcissists do when you go no contact with them. They're going to try every trick in the book, but you're going to be armed with this knowledge and you're going to stick strong to your self-care and you can rise above this manipulation. Everything they do is a manipulation. Remember that.
And today we're tackling why narcissists use the silent treatment and how to respond to it. What do? Narcissists are not the same as other people. They respond with silent treatment in ways that shouldn't be silent treatment, right? You're like, why would they be going silent on me? They're an enigma and they resort to the silent treatment most importantly to chip away at you and to control you and to chip away at your self-esteem, and it causes you trauma. It causes you chaos, especially when the relationship starts off, whether it's a professional relationship or a personal relationship. I just spoke to somebody yesterday. I was having lunch with somebody yesterday who's extremely powerful person, a woman who founded one of the largest brands in the world, a brand that you would definitely recognize. And she was talking about a romantic relationship that she'd been in, a marriage that she was in. And she was saying how it, that ended up in divorce, how the person started off so overwhelming and it was so powerful and it took over her and they sweep you off your feet and you feel it completely rocks your world and you end up craving that because your dopamine is like going off like crazy. And so why do they use that silent treatment? Well, they use it because now your body is in this state of cortisol and stress, and so you're craving that dopamine hit from that person. It's almost like a drug addiction. You're like in withdrawal. And now you want so badly to hear from that person. You're waiting by the phone, you're waiting for the text, you're waiting for the thing to go off. Where's the email? You're watching your inbox. Where is it? Where is it? Because it started off with 100 emails, 1,000 texts. They're in your face. They're there all the time. And so it's really, really hard. That's why they use it. And by the way, if you're new here, I encourage you to subscribe, hit that notification bell, because if you are one of those unsuspecting victims, we don't want this to happen to you again. Because here I was talking to this person yesterday, and again, she was saying, I don't trust myself because it's this weapon. They literally use it like a weapon to exert control, inflict emotional pain. It's manipulation on their prey. That's what it is. And if you've had a disagreement with your partner, for example, if you're in a romantic relationship, instead of engaging in constructive dialogue, they'll retreat into deafening silence, leaving you stranded in this sea of uncertainty. You'll be texting, and then woof, gone. Self-doubt. And they're there and they're watching and they know, and they use it to punish you. It's oftentimes a power play. It's designed to make you feel small, to make you feel insignificant, to make you feel desperate for their validation. It's so sick. You agree with me? Put "so sick" in the comments, right? And even at work, they'll do this. It's not just romantic settings, it's in a workplace too. Let's say you've got a boss who wants to show how dominant they are. So you pour your heart and your soul into a project and you say, here you go, here it is. Spent so much time on this. Let me know what you think. And then guess what? Crickets. Nothing. You hear nothing back.
it's cruel. It can be cruel. First and foremost, you got to understand that it's part of their deep-seated insecurities. It's their insatiable need for control. It has to do with them, and it does not have to do with you. And so what they do is they withhold communication to elicit a reaction from you, to get that supply from you, that narcissistic supply, to get you to be desperate, to get you to be pleading, to reaffirm their twisted need for that sense of superiority. You don't want to play into that, because studies show that narcissists thrive on controlling their victims and their emotions. If you withdraw communication, then you can start to take back that power, because what they're doing by withdrawing communication is asserting their dominance and manipulating you, because they want you to be begging for their attention. And it's a vicious cycle. The more you do it, the more they're going to do it again, the more empowered they feel. Refuse to play their game. So you got to be confident. You got to stand strong, right? You got to like breathe, baby. Like, take a deep breath. And if you're negotiating with them, get my free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. It will help you. Winmynegotiation.com, 15 pages. It's a free ebook. Get it now. Go get it. It'll help you. And join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. That will help you too. Get help that you need. Don't play their game. If you do that, if you say, I'm sorry, if you play into it, then you're going to be asking for more. That's when they're going to, next time it's going to be worse. So focus on yourself, your own emotional well-being. And remember, you're not responsible for their actions. Detach emotionally. It'll help you so much. One of my clients, let's call her Sarah, she was trapped in a toxic cycle with her narcissistic partner. And every time he gave her the silent treatment, she would spiral into this frenzy of self-doubt. And through our work together, especially through our high conflict negotiation certification program, she really learned how to detach emotionally and focus on her own growth and happiness. And now she coaches other people to do the same thing, which is so powerful and so beautiful. That narcissist is gone from her life, and she's helping other people to do the same thing, which is amazing. So boundaries are your shield. Boundaries are your bridge to new life. Communicate your boundaries clearly. Communicate your boundaries assertively. Don't hesitate to enforce them with consequences if they're violated. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and anyone who fails to honor them doesn't deserve a place in your life. They chose to have those boundaries in place by virtue of their behavior. You didn't. Those are just some of the things that you can do. And if you found this so enlightening, I want to leave you with this reminder. You're worthy of love and respect and joy and happiness and peace and honor and all of the good things in life. And the narcissist silent treatment dims your light. That's an attempt to dim your light.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We often talk about red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on green flags in friends and partners, whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself from time to time? So how about we work on the relationships that are going to love you back, including yourself? I know for me, therapy's been absolutely game-changing, and learning how to love myself, set boundaries, and overcome all sorts of blocks I didn't even realize I was creating for myself. I just knew I wanted to be the best version of myself that I could be. What I love about BetterHelp is that they make therapy totally accessible and convenient. The network is totally diverse, more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. Plus, if you don't gel with one, you can just easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate. Okay, so let's talk about what happens
when you go silent on a narcissist, how they handle that. So it's kind of an ironic thing, by the way, because narcissists, they love to do this to you. But there's a difference, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And I have a whole video on what's the difference between going no contact, silent treatment, and ghosting. And you should definitely check out that video. But I just want to like touch on it here briefly because there's a big difference between them ghosting you and you just deciding you want to go no contact because you're doing it to protect yourself. You're doing it to just reduce your exposure to the flames of toxicity. They do it to manipulate you. They do it to drive you crazy. So I do want to say that if you are going to go no contact with a narcissist and, you know, give them the silent treatment in a way, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're doing it to protect yourself. So that you can start to heal and you won't be triggered as much. And I say this because I don't want you to be triggered, so that you'll be able to negotiate from a place of way less emotion, which will help you tremendously. So don't do it to kind of retaliate or say, oh, they did it, so I'm going to do it. Do it for the right reasons. So that's the first thing I do want to say to you about this. And all right, so let's talk about how they handle your silence. Number one is you're going to just get like completely overwhelmed with almost like claustrophobic, can't breathe, flooding of every possible way of them trying to overwhelm you with messages. They're going to blow up your phone. They're going to show up at your house. They're going to show up at your office. Boundaries be gone. The reason why narcissists have no boundaries, by the way, is because they believe that people exist to give them that narcissistic supply, and they don't see any difference between you and them. People exist to serve them. And so they feel, that they can just do whatever they want. And so when you try to go silent on them, they will just go insane and they just might go ballistic on you. And all of a sudden, there they are everywhere. And it's kind of a funny thing, frankly, because obviously they probably have done it to you. And when you are questioning it in any way, now you're needy, now you're controlling, now you're just being ridiculous because obviously they were busy, they were at work, they were doing this, that, or the other thing, and they try to turn it on to you like you're the crazy person. And but yet when it happens to them, oh my gosh, they just go insane. And they'll just basically, like, the stuff that'll be in their text messages and their emails will be like a vomiting of every kind of emotion you can imagine. They may go from rage and you are the worst possible disgusting thing that ever walked the earth to what are you doing, and we should be working this out, and I mean, it'll just be a hodgepodge of all sorts of different things. They're just like desperate all of a sudden. And one of the things you need to remember is, even though it's so crazy, they have a tremendous fear of being abandoned. And I remember thinking it's so interesting to me because I never had to deal with this in a romantic situation, but I did have to deal with it in a business situation. And I remember thinking, like, why would I want to stay in this relationship when you've been horrible to me? But like, they don't see it like that. I mean, somehow they think that they're like getting away with these things, and but they have this tremendous fear of abandonment. And so that gets triggered, and that narcissistic injury will get triggered. And when that gets triggered, that narcissistic rage can come flying out, depending on the type of narcissist you're dealing with, whether it's a covert, a malignant, a regular grandiose narcissist, or whatever it is. You're it'll come out in different ways, but that's what you're going to see. I mean, it's, they'll just kind of go crazy. So that's the first thing. The next thing is that they're going to go back to whatever worked for them before to get you into their web of things. So love bombing, I'll call it number 2 being love bombing, but it's like there's a whole umbrella of all different types of things that they might do in the love bombing. They might apologize, they might say sorry, if they need to. And if you want to know more about what a narcissist really means when they say sorry, definitely check out my video on that. Because, sorry, not sorry, really, but they use sorry as a means of manipulation. So if they have to say sorry, they might, just to like get you, they might project, deflect, whatever they need to say or do in that moment. If it's been a long time since you've gone silent on them and the relationship appears to be over, they may just pop back up in the form of hoovering. Like, you'll get a little DM into your inbox there, or so like a random text, thought of you today, or maybe send you a song or something like that. I do want to say to you, do not fall for this. Do not fall for this, because, it ain't real. I mean, they do and say what they need to because they want to get you back into their web of control. So they'll hoover, they'll love bomb, they may future fake. Oh, and the future is going to be different, blah, 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 whatever. Don't fall for it. If you're not falling for it, give me that in the comments. Write that below. Not falling for it. I want to see you write that below. Okay, so the next thing that they will do is they will look for their next source of supply. So while they're still trying to keep you there, they're like trolls, they got to be constantly looking for it. Where is it? Where is it? The vultures. Where's my next source? And so they'll go and find it somewhere else in the form of another person. And so then this other person now can become a tool that they can use not only to get supply for themselves, but also to potentially make you jealous. Great form of supply there. Also to use these new people as potentially a good flying monkey. Those coverts, how they love their flying monkeys. Yes, they do. And so they might use it for that, like line them up against you, or, how wronged they've been by you, how horrible you must be. And so therefore the smear campaign comes out at that point. And by the way, the coverts are a little better at the smear campaign because they're so good at like coding it in care. So they, in their faux form of care, so they'll say something like, I am so concerned about Susie. She's been drinking so much, and I hate to see that, like that. But it's really a smear campaign. They're pretty stealth at that. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that, if it's a malignant or even a grandiose, they might stalk you. Coverts will stalk you too, but in a way where they can really like not get caught. They'll stalk more like your social media or something like that. Whereas, the others might actually like drive past your house or have random things mailed to you or things like that, where you kind of can get a little bit nervous about that. But that's something else that they might do. So be very careful about that. And I do want to say that stalking will sometimes be covered by your local statutes. And so you might be able to get like a temporary order of protection or something like that if you see any sort of stalking. The next one is that they might start to become undone. This is where they start to make mistakes. You know, they start to get nervous and frustrated, and so they start doing all kinds of crazy things, and they up the ante, and they start being a little bit more brazen and not as worried about covering up their behavior. And that's when they start to make mistakes. I have a whole video on the undoing of a narcissist where I actually broke down that show that Hugh Grant is in that's on HBO. And it's really fascinating how he actually, that character was such a great study in what happens on the undoing of a narcissist. So check that out if you're interested. And the last thing is narcissistic collapse. They will literally go crazy sometimes and absolutely, um, you know, fall. And that doesn't happen all that often. And it ain't very pretty, but it does happen sometimes. But that's okay. That is not your responsibility. Do not feel guilty for it. You can't change them. Just namaste and walk away. Keep going. The best thing that you can ever do is wipe them from the CPU of your life.
So 7 mind games they play that they hope that you won't figure out. The first one is the silent treatment. So now, if you try to do this to them, of course, they go absolutely ballistic, especially during negotiations, right? They will show up. They literally will storm the gates. They do this to control you. And they do this, by the way, whether it's a romantic situation or a business partnership, because I was in a business partnership with a narcissist. Those of you who are out there dealing with a narcissist in a non-romantic situation, you know that this is true too. They use the silent treatment as a form of control. And what's really maddening is that they will blow up your phone. They will blow up your email. You know that thing is stuck to them like glue. You know that they never leave their phone anywhere. It's always right next to them, but yet they won't respond. They use it as a form of punishment and control. And it's incredibly painful. They use it as a way to make you feel isolated, to make you feel unloved, unworthy, undeserving, and to play with your mind. It's one of those games that they play that they hope you'll never figure out. So that's number one. Number two, of course, gaslighting. I mean, it's the mother of all the things that they do. It's a huge form of emotional abuse. I don't even have enough time in this video. I could sit here all day and go into all the forms of gaslighting that they go into. I mean, all the types of narcissists use this, malignant, grandiose. It doesn't matter the type of narcissist that we're talking about. They all use gaslighting as a form of emotional abuse. But really what gaslighting is, in its purest form, it's a way of making you question your reality. That's what gaslighting is. It's basically saying what you think you're seeing with your eyes, what you think you heard with your ears, what you are experiencing with your senses doesn't exist. You're delusional. You're crazy. So they attempt to make you question your reality. So they deny things. They accuse you of things. They accuse you of false allegations. They manipulate situations so that you feel like you are losing your mind. They may deny things in text messages, deny things in emails. They deny things directly to your face. I mean, they were literally, you could show them something and they will directly say, no, that is not what it is that you are showing them. You can actually go, well, maybe I'm not seeing this correctly. Even if you are, I mean, they could say something's not blue, even if you're staring at something that's blue. And if you've been dealing with a narcissist long enough, you might go, maybe it's not blue. Maybe I'm seeing purple. purple. Maybe it's actually red. I mean, you'll actually start to question your own reality, because that's how crazy you can start to feel. It starts to cause trauma on you physically. So gaslighting is a real thing. It's something that they all do, and it can really take its toll on you in a number of different ways. And as I said, I don't have enough time here to go into all of the different ways that they use gaslighting, but gaslighting is definitely one of the mind games that they use. Number 3 is projection. I call it projection and deflection, lying and denying, projection and deflection, but projection is definitely one of the things that they use. Oh my goodness. I had an employee, one of my paralegals who used to work for me, that was a master of projection. Boy, nothing was ever her fault. It was always somebody else's. It was always something else that was going on in her life. Someone else had to take the fall. Someone else had to take the blame for all the different things that went wrong. But it's a defense mechanism that narcissists use to cover up their inadequacies, their irresponsibilities, their wrongdoings. So they project their flaws, their shortcomings, their wrongdoings onto someone else. And most of the time, by the way, it's not the third party, it's you. It's good old fashioned you. It can be a form of gaslighting, by the way. So the next one is love bombing. This is one of the first types of mind games that narcissists will play. This is usually your intro to them, unless it's your family member, your parent, or something like that. If this is somebody that you met along the way, this is your intro to them, right? This is how you get to know them. This is, sometimes called the idealization phase. Oftentimes it's referred to as the love bomb. Even if it's not a romantic situation, it's still oftentimes referred to as the love bomb. But this is the phase where, you see the charming version, the charismatic version of that narcissist. And by the way, they whip this version back on out when they need to, when they think that you are on to them, might leave them. If they need to, this comes out with the future fake or whatever, the fabulous version, the perfect version, the one that makes you feel like you are the most special, incredible human being on the planet. They're really good at this version, but what they're doing is they're mirroring you, they're reading you, they're looking to see what it is that you want, and they're reflecting that back to you. So that's why that version seems so great, because that's what's really happening with that love bomb. So it's not really a real version. It's a totally fake version of a person that they ideally think that you want to see, and then they reflect that back to you. So the next one is triangulation. So this is often referred to as the flying monkeys. This is where they line up third parties. Covert narcissists are excellent at this, excellent at this. And this is where they get their little friends, their little minions, to make it seem like that you are the only one who thinks a certain way, and everyone else thinks that, they're wonderful, and you are the only one that thinks that they're terrible or whatever. Don't think that there's some kind of healthy relationship going on with these third parties. There's not. It's probably a situation that's very similar to the situation that you have, Many times I used to think that the third parties, these flying monkeys, were in on it all the time. Many times they're not. They're just part of the narcissist manipulation, and they don't even realize it. One of the things that I kind of figured out when I was dealing with the narcissists in my life is stay away from all of them, because it's all bad energy. It's all a whole bunch of drama, trauma, and chaos that you don't need. And especially if the narcissist has them under their spell in some way, it definitely is not worth it. Especially because narcissists have this tendency to want to pit people against each other. You don't really want to be caught up in that whole situation. I would just stay out of the whole deal myself. I would say, wish them well, but over there. Okay. We are working our way through 7 mind games that narcissists play that they hope that you don't figure out. Next one is discarding people. Narcissists love to do the discard. And by the way, they discard and then they come, it's sort of like this spongy thing. They discard and then they snap you back in because as soon as you discard, they don't actually want to discard. Because if there's any supply to be had, they snap you back in because they discard you and you go, well, I don't really want to be discarded. And you get over it. And it's like a horrible, it's painful and it's awful. And then you go, well, all right, let me live my life and I'll deal with it and whatever. And then here they come with their Hoover thing. You don't need it. So, but that's what they do. They discard and then they're like sticky fingers back in again. But they discard if there's nothing left, if there's no more useful purpose, if there's no more juice in that battery. It's super painful. And it can be super abrupt and you can leave you feeling very hurt, very confused, very abandoned feeling, very isolated. And it's horrible because obviously, you've actually got feelings involved over here, but they don't have that same level of capacity to have those feelings. It can be awful. It's time to move on when you've dealt with that. And so I'm just going to say, put in the comments, move on, just move on. Don't look back, move on. We've worked our way through 6 of them. There's one more that I wanted to make sure that you got. This is the biggest one that I see narcissists do. And this is especially prominent in covert narcissists who I think tend to be the worst ones in relationships, the worst ones, because these are the stealthiest types of narcissists. This is the type of narcissist that I had to deal with in 2 different instances where they targeted me, and it's extremely painful. It's extremely toxic, and that is they play the victim. The reason why this is extremely difficult is because the rest of the world may actually see this person as a victim. So this is very different than a grandiose narcissist where, the person is extremely strong, extremely boisterous and bragging, comes along and demands the best table in the restaurant or holds court wherever they go. And so people don't feel sorry for that person necessarily. If this is a covert narcissist or a person that's playing the victim and people actually do see this person as a victim, and especially as a victim of you, and they're going around telling everybody how horrible you were to them, even if you did nothing to them, it's super frustrating at the very least and can be very, very painful and hurtful and harmful at the worst. And narcissists are excellent at playing the victim card. They make people feel guilty, not just you feel guilty, but they make others around them feel guilty, or they make others around them think that you should feel guilty, or others around them feel sorry for them. And they use this to control people. Then they gain sympathy. There's a huge payoff. They'd rather have the sympathy seen as a victim and get this sympathy than have a relationship, a real relationship with people that they should be wanting to have a relationship with,
because that payoff is so huge. I personally have also dealt with 2 covert narcissists, and I am on a mission to help you break free from the drama, trauma, and chaos of dealing with narcissists. I know what it looks like when they're trying to break you down because I've been there. I've seen it in my law practice. I've seen it in dealing with now thousands of people who've come through my programs. And I've also dealt with it in my personal life. I know what they're trying to do when they're trying to break you. So one of the things that they will do is they will like take these like passing swipes at you. So, especially the covert narcissists, they are kings and queens of these like passing little swipes. So, these are like when the narcissists aren't actually out to tell the world that they're trying to break you down. They're just trying to like dent you. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. You know, covert narcissists are so stealth. They don't want anybody to know. So it's like, I call it clean hands. Okay. They kind of try to keep their hands clean, you know, their nose clean. They don't want anyone to know what they're up to. Their clothes are clean. Everything is not wrinkled, but right underneath the surface, they're doing this dirty work. Everybody else thinks that they are wonderful. They're kind. They are, so many people go, well, they couldn't be a narcissist. They are pastors. They are charitable people. They're out there doing Habitat for Humanity every single weekend. They're organizing fundraisers. They work at the hospital. They're the first people that show up when somebody is sick. They are wonderful people. They're not a narcissist. Or this person is an older woman who is kind and bakes cookies. This is not a narcissist. This is the kind of person who just underneath the surface has this boiling sort of rage, this jealousy or competition or deep insecurity or something going on with them that has them take these sort of passing swipes at people that just under the surface, you don't realize what's going on. So they might say things like, oh, that's so wonderful that you got to purchase a new home. Oh, but too bad it's at the end of a street where there's no street lights and you're so far away from everything else and there's no security. I mean, wouldn't you be afraid? And I would be afraid out there by myself like that. But to each their own. Like it's sort of like a compliment but not really. It's like these passing swipes. Or I had a client who said that she got back together with her husband, and her husband was like all gung-ho with marriage counseling, work on their marriage, and he was going to be the perfect husband, and he loved her, and he was working on everything. And just a couple of months into it, they were getting ready to go out. And just out of nowhere, he, under his breath, said something like, lipstick. Nothing else, just said lipstick under his breath. That's a passing swipe. And she was like, what did you say? And he said, no, I didn't say anything. And the implication, she knew what he meant by lipstick. It was meant to tell her that she looked like a slut, that she looked a hussy because it was this red lipstick or whatever it was. And all he said was lipstick. And so there's this clean hands effect, right? Because if she told anybody about it, he could say, "Oh, I was saying I liked her lipstick. I was saying it looked nice on her. What is she talking about? I was actually complimenting her and saying how great she looked." No one would be able to know. There's no other context there. So that's what I mean. Passing swipes. 6 signs a narcissist is trying to break you. That's number one. Number two is gaslighting. Passing swipes is a form of gaslighting, but this is another whole level. They use gaslighting. So, I could actually sit here and spend the next 2 days basically on all the different forms of gaslighting that there are and how narcissists use gaslighting in all the different varieties and forms. And there could be whole connoisseurs of gaslighting and vintners of wine on gaslighting. I mean, there could be a whole school of gaslighting, but we're not going to do that. I'm just going to say that gaslighting is a way that narcissists use to make you think that you're crazy. And if I explain to you where the term came from, it makes it really, really easy for you to understand. Basically, it came from a play called Gaslight, which is also the name of a movie from the same genre period. It was back in the 30s, which was where a husband was trying to make the wife think that she was crazy. And what he would do is blow out these gas lights. And she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, no, it wasn't. And it made her question her own mind. Wait a minute, I'm pretty sure that was just lit. No, sorry, wasn't lit. So gaslighting is the same thing. It's like trying to make you think that you're crazy. Things that you are seeing, you're not seeing. Things that you're hearing, you're not hearing. You see a text message that says, "Miss you," with hearts from a person, and you're assuming that there's something going on with somebody, and they say, "Oh, you're reading too much into it," that sort of thing. The person says, "Oh, you have a big fat butt," and then they say, "Ha ha," and you say, "That really hurt my feelings," and they say, "Oh, you're too sensitive." They're invalidating your feelings. That's gaslighting. "Oh, I'm going away on the weekend of our anniversary." "Oh, when did you decide you're doing that?" "Oh, we had a whole conversation about that. Don't you remember?" "Oh, we never had that conversation." "Oh, well, yeah, we definitely did, and you agreed to it." "Oh, I definitely don't remember ever having that conversation." "Oh, yeah, we had a whole conversation about it, and you agreed." "Well, we never had that conversation." That's all gaslighting. All of that is a form of gaslighting. There's so many different forms of gaslighting, but all of them boil down to trying to make you think that you're crazy. Okay. Thing you just need to remember about gaslighting is if you saw it with your eyes, if you heard it with your ears, if all of those things, then it happened and your feelings matter. There's that. Number 3 is passive aggression. Another way a narcissist tries to break you is through passive aggression. "Absolutely, I will do it." And then they don't. That's a passive aggressive move. Covert narcissists are so great at this. It's one of their classic moves. Being passive aggressive is a very narcissistic move. Number 4 is silent treatment. They will blow up your phone. "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you." You write them back. "Oh, nothing." And then you're like, "Hey, where are you?" "Oh, why are you so needy?" That's a form of silent treatment. Or another form of silent treatment that you might see with a narcissist is, how come you did this, 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 and this? And then you write back and you're defending yourself. That's not true. "I'm here with my sister," and whatever it is. And then you're trying to get them to respond back to you. Nothing. and you know that they're reading your emails and you or text messages and you know they're right there, but then they don't respond because they're trying to make you squirm. Things like that. Silent treatment. Okay? To try to manipulate you, make you squirm, control you, all of those, make you think that you're crazy, all of that. That's silent treatment. The next thing that they will do is attack you. You're a cheater, you're this, you're that, which is, like out of nowhere. You're like, oh my God, how can that, why would you say that? And then when you try to defend yourself, then they play the victim. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you would do this to me. And I can't believe you would do this to me now. And this is a horrible time. And, it becomes all about them. They attack and then they play the victim. Again, it's a way to make themselves out to be the victim so that you never, ever can win. You can never win. They attack and then they reverse it so that they become the victim. And then finally, the last one is they use guilt trips. Oh, don't worry about me. I'll just sit over here and you just go on. I can take care of myself while you go have a life. I'm used to things not being fair. I'm used to taking care of everyone while no one takes care of me. Must be nice to have all of that for yourself. I've never had that, but okay, great. Like that whole guilt trip thing. That's very much a covert narcissist move as well. And so they guilt you into having to do things, or they'll send a text like, oh, that wasn't meant for you. Sorry. I was waiting to get my biopsy results, but I know you don't care. So I'll just handle it myself. I'm fine. That sort of thing. So guilt trips. Those are 6 of the signs that a narcissist is trying to break you. And as I said, with the gaslighting one, just that alone can cause so much long-term damage to your psyche and even to you physically, and start to cause autoimmune issues with you, because into your gut health and to your overall health, because of how much damage it can cause.